Welcome to Jordan Pierce Stories, the place where the most inspiring, dramatic, and unexpected stories come to life. Today, we begin a journey that's both sweet and challenging, titled No Dating at Work. The CEO broke her own rule for the chauffeur single dad. This is the story of a powerful woman CEO who set an unbreakable rule in her company: no workplace dating. Yet fate had other plans, bringing her closer to a man she thought she'd never even notice. A humble chauffeur, who was also a strong, loving single dad. Between differences in status, the pressure of society, and challenges from both the company and their own hearts, they are forced to make choices that will change their lives forever. Will love be strong enough to shatter every barrier? Or will that cold, unyielding rule destroy everything? Follow all 8 chapters of this story to discover shocking twists and emotional highs. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss a single episode of this captivating series. The morning in New York began with familiar sounds: the blaring horns of traffic, the sharp rhythm of high heels on the pavement, and the constant buzz of phone calls inside a towering glass skyscraper. On the very top floor, in a sleek office with walls of glass overlooking the entire city, Amelia Carter, the powerful CEO of a financial empire, stood before her meeting agenda. Amelia was known for her iron will, never allowing emotions to interfere with business. She had once declared firmly in front of hundreds of employees, no dating at work. This is a non-negotiable rule. That rule wasn't just to maintain professionalism. It was also her shield against gossip and scandal. But as she left her office and stepped into the sleek, black car waiting downstairs, Amelia had no idea that her unbreakable rule was about to be tested by the company's new chauffeur, a tall man with quiet eyes and a warm smile, yet carrying a hidden sadness. His name was Ethan Miller, a single dad shouldering the weight of raising his child alone. What seemed like an ordinary encounter soon became the doorway to fate. When Amelia glanced at him through the rearview mirror, their eyes met, and in that instant, she felt something different, something she couldn't and shouldn't allow in the workplace. The car rolled through the bustling streets. Inside, Amelia had her laptop open, eyes fixed on stacks of reports, fingers typing rapidly on the keyboard. For her, every commute was nothing more than extra work time, nothing else. But today felt different. In a fleeting moment, her gaze drifted up to the rearview mirror, catching Ethan's focused posture. He sat upright, hands steady on the wheel, his eyes radiating a rare calm. Not the timid look of a new hire, but the quiet steadiness of a man who had weathered many storms. Amelia found herself surprised. Why was she noticing her chauffeur? Shaking her head, she reminded herself to concentrate on the upcoming multi-million-dollar deal. Yet when Ethan stopped at a red light and adjusted the mirror, their eyes met once more. For reasons she couldn't explain, Amelia sensed in his eyes the same loneliness she had often felt within herself. Standing at the peak of power, yet hollow in her personal life. That feeling, strange and uninvited, made her let out a faint sigh. A sigh she didn't even realize had slipped. In the driver's seat, Ethan heard it. He said nothing, only pressed his lips together, though his eyes in the mirror flickered with a subtle stir. The car stopped in front of the grand conference hall, where Amelia was about to sign an important deal. As the door opened, the crisp morning air swept in. She stepped out, mentally preparing herself to face a wave of partners and the press. Ethan swiftly held a large umbrella over her head. His gesture was natural, effortless, as if he had been doing it for years. Yet that simple act of thoughtfulness made Amelia pause. For the first time in years, she felt a quiet sense of protection, something no assistant, no high-level advisor had ever given her. "Thank you," Amelia murmured, her voice clipped out of habit. Ethan only gave a faint smile. In his eyes there was respect, but not the forced kind reserved for a powerful CEO. It was genuine, unpretentious, and that unsettled her. Before stepping inside, Amelia turned back. The image of the man in a chauffeur's suit, standing firm amid the rush of the crowd, his quiet eyes watching her, imprinted itself deeply in her mind. It was the first moment Amelia realized the rule of no dating at work, she once thought unshakable, might no longer be absolute. Inside the conference hall, Amelia commanded the room with her presence, cameras flashing non-stop. The press swarmed to capture every moment of the famous CEO, a woman admired across the business world. She smiled with confidence, shaking hands with partners, yet deep down, her mind lingered on the image of the chauffeur waiting outside. As she signed the contract, Amelia suddenly noticed her hand trembling, a slip that had never happened in her career. She scolded herself silently. Why am I distracted by someone so irrelevant? But the more she tried to push the thought away, the clearer those calm eyes became in her mind. When the ceremony ended, Amelia stepped outside. The glass doors opened, and there he was, Ethan, waiting as if it were second nature. His face calm, his eyes steady, yet somehow, Amelia's heart skipped a beat. She took a deep breath, slid into the car, and said in her usual composed tone, "Tomorrow, 7 a.m., I need to be at the office earlier than usual." "Yes, Miss Carter," Ethan replied, his voice low and warm. The car pulled away, leaving behind the glittering lights of the hall. But inside the quiet cabin, Amelia knew one truth. The rule she had built her reputation on was starting to crumble, and this was only the beginning. The next morning, New York gleamed under the early sunlight. At exactly 7 a.m., Amelia stepped out of her luxury high-rise. Ethan was already waiting. The car door opened, and he gave her a polite nod. Everything was proper. Nothing more, nothing less. Amelia slid into the back seat, placing her leather briefcase beside her. But instead of immediately opening her laptop as usual, she stared out the window. The streets rolled past, yet her mind was tangled. The upcoming board meeting, the quarterly reports, and the silent chauffeur in front. Her phone rang. She glanced at the screen. It was her mother. After a brief hesitation, she answered. "Amelia, are you working this early again?" Her mother's voice came through, tinged with concern. "Mom, I'm busy. Can we talk later?" Amelia replied quickly, her tone tense. From the driver's seat, Ethan heard the tired edge in her voice. He didn't turn around, kept his eyes on the road, but inside he felt an unexpected sympathy. As a single father, he knew too well the struggle of balancing responsibility with family ties. When the call ended, Amelia leaned back in her seat, closing her eyes for a moment. That fleeting vulnerability slipped into Ethan's view through the rearview mirror. In that cold, commanding woman, he glimpsed not just pride, but a loneliness she couldn't quite hide. And in that moment, the line between work and human quietly began to blur. The car turned onto the road leading straight to the company headquarters. The silence inside remained unbroken, save for the steady hum of the engine. Amelia opened her eyes and caught Ethan's gaze in the rearview mirror. For a fleeting second, she felt as if he had caught her in that rare moment of weakness. "How long have you been a driver?" she asked suddenly, her tone calm but edged with curiosity. Ethan was slightly surprised, but his face stayed composed. "A few years now, but before that, I did a lot of different jobs. I chose this one because it gives me time to be with my son." Amelia paused. A man openly speaking about family, about his child, without hesitation. In her world, where everyone only talked about profits, stocks, and power, this felt so different. "You have a son?" she asked, her voice softening ever so slightly. "Yes, Ms. Carter, he's 8. He's my whole world," Ethan replied, with the faintest smile, the rare kind Amelia had seen from him. In that moment, Amelia felt something stir. She was used to men obsessed with ambition and dominance, yet here was a humble chauffeur who placed his family above all else. And somehow, that pulled her closer. The car stopped in front of the office building, but this time, as Amelia stepped out, her heart wasn't as completely armored as it had been before. Amelia strode into the main lobby, her heels striking sharply against the marble floor. As always, employees greeted her with a mix of respect and caution. But today, something about her was different. Her pace was slower, her thoughts lingering on that brief conversation in the car. Outside, Ethan quietly closed the car door and prepared to leave. A couple of receptionists happened to notice. They whispered to each other, "Did you see that?" The CEO was talking to her driver. "Yeah, strange. She never pays attention to anyone." Amelia didn't hear the chatter, but one of her close assistants did. Sharing the elevator with her, the assistant gave a faint smile. "Miss Carter, you seem different today. Did something make you happy?" Amelia lifted her head, her sharp eyes flashing. "Nothing. Focus on the schedule." But as the elevator doors slid shut, Amelia felt her heartbeat quicken. She knew too well, even the slightest sign could spark questions in this company of sharp ears and sharper tongues. And if anything involved Ethan, she would be the first to break the very rule she had sworn to uphold. That afternoon, after a grueling day of meetings, Amelia attended a charity gala. It was a gathering of business elites and the media, an event where even her smallest action could make headlines the next morning. As Amelia stepped out of the car, Ethan dutifully opened the door and offered his hand. It was routine, professional, yet the warmth in his eyes made her hesitate for the briefest second. And just then, a cluster of reporters turned their cameras. "Who's that man? Is he Carter's driver?" one whispered. Flashes went off. Amelia immediately straightened, masking herself in her usual icy composure as she walked inside. But her heart hadn't yet settled. Throughout the gala, she mingled, shook hands, and smiled for the crowd. Yet every time she turned back, she found Ethan standing quietly in the distance, watching, protecting. He didn't belong in that glittering world, but somehow, his silent presence made her feel safer than any of the powerful men beside her. A wealthy businessman approached with a sly grin. "Carter, does your no dating at work rule still stand? I hear you've been more flexible lately." Amelia froze for half a second before replying with a razor-sharp smile. "The rule is still there, and I've never let anyone outside of business influence my decisions." But as her eyes involuntarily drifted toward the entrance, where Ethan still stood quietly, Amelia knew the truth. Her words were no longer entirely true, and sooner or later, that truth would surface. Monday morning, the atmosphere in the company felt different. Whispers floated from hallways to meeting rooms. With even the slightest glance, it was clear. Something was swirling around the powerful CEO. Amelia entered the building with her usual confidence, yet her sharp eyes quickly caught the discreet stares, the faint smirks. She knew the rumors had begun to spread. In the board meeting, one senior executive spoke up, his tone edged with sarcasm. "Carter, we need to discuss the no dating at work policy. Lately it seems to be a rather hot topic." The room fell silent, a few stifled chuckles. Amelia's gaze cut across the table, cold and unflinching. "That rule still stands, and there will be no exceptions. If anyone has doubts, I suggest they focus on their responsibilities instead of wasting time on baseless gossip." No one dared to respond, but tension thickened the air. When the meeting ended, Amelia returned to her office. Through the glass walls, she spotted Ethan outside, waiting to drive her to the next client. In that moment, she felt the weight of her dilemma. Inside, an entire organization watching her every move. Outside, one quiet man who had unknowingly become the center of their storm. Amelia drew a deep breath. She knew this was only the beginning of the real storm to come. That afternoon, Amelia was in her office reviewing reports when her phone rang. Her assistant rushed in, face tense. "Ms. Carter, the media has started writing. Some outlets are reporting that you've broken your no dating at work rule." For a chauffeur, Amelia's grip tightened on her pen. She opened her laptop and immediately saw the sensational headlines spreading everywhere. "Carter Group's iron-fisted CEO preaches rules but makes an exception for her driver." Is Amelia Carter secretly dating a single dad? There was no proof, but the words alone were enough to stir chaos. The company's stock had even begun to dip slightly. Amelia calmly shut the laptop, though inside she was burning. She knew too well. In this world, sometimes a rumor alone could destroy a reputation built over years. When she left the office, she found Ethan waiting by the car as usual, his eyes steady, calm, unaware that he had just become the subject of countless headlines. Amelia walked toward him, for the first time letting her gaze linger. Amid the storm of media pressure and prying eyes, his quiet presence was the only thing that brought her peace. And that, more than anything, left her unsettled. The next morning, as Ethan drove Amelia to the office, he overheard two security guards chatting. "Did you read the papers today? They say Carter's involved with her chauffeur." "Yeah, can you believe it? A CEO of her stature? With a driver?" They snickered. Ethan's hands tightened on the wheel. His face remained calm, but inside, a heavy weight settled. When Amelia stepped out of the car, he opened the door as usual, but she caught something different in his eyes. Not just calmness, but a flicker of unease, of worry, of fear that he had become a burden to her. As the door closed and he sat alone, Ethan exhaled slowly. His thoughts went to his son, to the quiet life he had worked so hard to protect. This rumor, if it spread further, wouldn't just endanger Amelia's career. It could disrupt his and his boy's world too. That afternoon, As Amelia left the building after a long meeting, Ethan spoke unexpectedly, his voice low and sincere. "Miss Carter, if my presence is causing trouble, I can ask the company to reassign me. I don't want to hurt you." Amelia froze, her eyes flickering. For a heartbeat, her chest tightened. She realized Ethan wasn't thinking of himself. He was thinking only of her, and that made it impossible for her to let go. Amelia froze at Ethan's words. For a moment, it felt as if the world had gone silent. This man, dismissed by others as just a driver, had put her well-being above his own safety and stability. She turned back, her usually icy eyes softened by something rare. "Mr. Miller," Amelia said slowly, "I don't hire people who run at the first sign of trouble. If anyone has to face these rumors, it's me, not you." Ethan stayed silent, but his gaze held surprise. Never had anyone stood up for him this way, especially not a woman known for her coldness and strict rules. Amelia stepped into the car, sitting tall, her eyes fixed on the horizon. Inside, she knew this decision meant she had crossed a line she once vowed never to cross. But instead of fear, for the first time, she felt strangely free. Outside, the rumors would only grow louder. But within the quiet cabin, between her and Ethan, one truth had just been sealed. There would be no turning back. 3 days later, the crisis erupted. That morning, as Amelia entered her office, her assistant handed her a stack of newspapers. On the front page was a photo of her stepping out of the car, with Ethan holding an umbrella over her. Splashed across the page under a sensational headline, "The CEO who broke her own rule for a single dad chauffeur?" Television anchors picked it up immediately, debating with smirks and curiosity. Is this true love, or just another scandal from the elite? Carter Group's stock plunged nearly 3% in a single morning. The board of directors called an emergency meeting, demanding that Amelia make a public statement. In the boardroom, one director spoke sharply. "Carter, we don't care who you date in your personal life, but when this company's name is dragged through the tabloids, when shareholders start panicking, it's no longer private. You need to make your position clear." Amelia sat in silence, her hands clasped under the table. She knew what they wanted. A firm denial, a decisive statement to kill the rumors. But her heart refused. Outside the thick glass walls, Amelia could still see Ethan's silhouette standing by the familiar black car. And in that instant, she realized this choice would determine not just her career, but her heart as well. That afternoon, Carter Group held an emergency press conference. The grand hall was packed with reporters, cameras flashing, lenses trained on the podium. The tension was palpable, everyone waiting to see how the iron-willed CEO would respond. Amelia walked out, posture upright, her dark suit amplifying her authority. Yet behind those sharp eyes, her heart carried a quiet storm. A reporter shot the first question. "Miss Carter, is it true you're romantically involved with your personal chauffeur? Have you broken your own no dating at work policy?" The room held its breath. Amelia drew in a steady breath, then answered firmly. "The no dating at work rule remains a cornerstone of Carter Group. I have never allowed my personal life to interfere with business, and I never will." The sound of furious typing filled the hall. The statement was sharp, decisive, yet vague enough not to be an outright denial. At the back, her assistant glanced at Amelia, realizing with surprise, this wasn't the absolute rejection the board wanted. It was deliberate ambiguity. By the time the conference ended, headlines blared, "CEO Carter, the rule still stands, but my personal life won't affect business, denial or evasion." And so, instead of extinguishing the fire, Amelia's words only fanned the flames higher. As the press conference ended, Amelia slipped out through the back of the building to avoid the swarm of reporters. Ethan was waiting, holding the car door open as always. She slid into the seat, shutting the door firmly. For the first time in days, her shoulders dropped, and she closed her eyes for a brief moment. The memory of flashing cameras, the barrage of questions, the scrutinizing stares, they still lingered. Through the rearview mirror, Ethan watched her. He saw the fatigue etched on the face of a woman who usually radiated unshakable pride. After a pause, his voice came low and steady. "You did well." Amelia opened her eyes, frowning slightly. "You heard it. They won't stop. Every word I spoke today will be torn apart in tomorrow's headlines." Ethan's grip tightened on the wheel. I know, but I also saw how you stood tall, how you didn't back down. They can gossip all they want, but they'll have to admit, you don't break. His words silenced her. Not the advice of board members, not the strategies of PR consultants, but the quiet sincerity of her driver gave her the strength she hadn't realized she needed. In the stillness of the car, their eyes met in the mirror, a silent connection, unspoken yet undeniable. And in that moment, Amelia knew. Even if the whole world turned against her, at least one person still believed. 2 days later, Amelia was summoned to a closed-door meeting with the board of directors. No press, no cameras, yet the atmosphere was heavier than any press conference. The chairman dropped a thick file onto the table, his tone stern. Carter, this situation cannot go on. Major shareholders are demanding answers. They're not only worried about the company's image, but about your focus. This company cannot gamble on the emotions of one individual, even if that individual is the CEO. Another member cut in, his voice laced with warning. If you don't put an end to this rumor, we'll have to reconsider your leadership. For the good of the company, the words sliced coldly. Amelia sat upright, her hands clenched beneath the table, but her gaze was unwavering. You want me to deny it, don't you? She asked slowly. Not just deny, the chairman replied. You need to prove the no dating at work policy isn't a joke. If necessary, fire the driver. For a moment, the room fell into silence. Outside the glass walls, Ethan's figure could just be seen by the parking lot. Amelia drew in a deep breath. This was no longer just personal. This was the moment of reckoning. Protect the man, or protect the throne, heart and reason, finally at war. That night, the top-floor office still glowed with light. Amelia sat alone, the city skyline spilling through the wide glass windows. On her desk lay 2 documents, a denial statement drafted by the board, and a termination order for Ethan. Her signature was all it would take to resolve everything. Her chest tightened as she stared at the papers. Everything she had built, her reputation, her power, her respect, hung in the balance. One wrong move, and her CEO chair could vanish overnight. Yet when she closed her eyes, she didn't see the boardroom or the directors' cold faces. She saw Ethan's steady eyes, the gentle smile when he spoke about his 8-year-old son, and his warm voice saying, I don't want to hurt you. Her phone buzzed, a message from her mother. Amelia, don't forget you're also a woman. Don't turn your heart to stone just to keep a title. Amelia set the phone down, exhaling deeply. The loneliness that had once built her walls of steel was now being broken down by the one man most people would call insignificant in her world. She hadn't made her decision yet, but deep inside, Amelia knew. The battle ahead wasn't just about keeping her company, it was about keeping hold of her true self. In his small Brooklyn apartment, Ethan sat at the worn kitchen table, staring at the stack of newspapers nosy neighbors had left at his door. On the front page, the photo of him holding an umbrella for Amelia blazed, plastered with mocking headlines. His 8-year-old son, Liam, bounded over, eyes curious. Dad, is that you? The man next to her in the picture. Ethan froze for a moment, then ruffled his son's hair. Yeah, that's me. But don't pay attention to what they write. Sometimes people talk without knowing the truth. Liam tilted his head, innocent as ever. So, are you friends with her? She's pretty, like someone in a movie. Ethan chuckled softly, but his heart felt heavy. He couldn't explain to his boy how a single rumor could upend both his job and their quiet life. That night, after tucking Liam into bed, Ethan sat in silence for a long while. He thought of Amelia's eyes in the car, strong yet deeply lonely. He knew she was under crushing pressure from the board and the press, but he also knew that his presence was at the heart of the storm. One thought lingered, maybe I should walk away. It might be the only way to protect her. And Liam. The next morning, Amelia stepped out of her luxury high-rise. As always, Ethan was waiting by the sleek black car. But unlike before, today he didn't look up to greet her, didn't offer even the faintest smile. He simply opened the door, composed as ever, then returned quietly to the driver's seat. Amelia frowned slightly. Inside the car, the silence pressed heavy. She opened her laptop, but her eyes couldn't focus. Throughout the ride, Ethan said nothing, no questions, no conversation. When the car stopped in front of headquarters, Amelia finally asked, her voice calm but edged with curiosity. Mr. Miller, is something wrong? Ethan hesitated, then answered briefly, "Nothing, Miss Carter. I just think it might be better if we kept more distance. For both our sakes." The words cut like ice, though she heard the strain in his voice. She wanted to argue, to tell him the rumors weren't his fault, but her lips stayed pressed shut. The car door closed behind her. Amelia walked away, her stride proud as always, but her heart ached. For the first time in years, an invisible emptiness made her feel lonelier than ever, even at the height of her power. That afternoon, after a grueling board meeting, Amelia walked out, her shoulders heavy with exhaustion. Ethan was waiting as always, but his eyes avoided hers, his silence louder than words. The car moved through the city, neon lights flashing outside. Yet inside the cabin the air was heavier than ever. Amelia watched him through the rear-view mirror, his calm face making her chest tighten. At last, she spoke, her tone stripped of its usual chill. "Do you really think keeping distance will solve everything? That the rumors will stop if you just disappear?" Ethan stiffened but kept his grip firm on the wheel. "I only want to protect you, Carter. Don't you see? They can take everything from me, but I won't let them destroy you." Amelia leaned forward, her voice trembling, unmasked for the first time. "You don't have to carry this alone. I don't need you to vanish to protect me. I need you here." Silence filled the space. Through the mirror, Ethan saw her eyes, not just proud and unyielding, but vulnerable, raw, and honest. The car sped through the bustling city, yet inside, one truth had been spoken aloud, a truth that could never be taken back. The rumors didn't fade, they exploded. A candid photo spread online. Amelia stepping into her car, her eyes glancing toward Ethan. Her expression softened in a way completely unlike her usual icy demeanor. That was all it took for thousands of comments to flood in. "Look at her eyes. There's definitely something there. A CEO and her chauffeur? This feels like a romance drama. Honestly, if it's true, I kinda like Carter more now." But not everyone was amused. Some investors fired off angry emails to the board, demanding answers. Carter Group's stock wavered dangerously. Inside the office, Amelia sat across from the PR team. One consultant slapped a file on the table. "Carter, you need to deny this immediately. We must release a statement making it crystal clear. There is nothing between you and that driver. Otherwise, this company will plunge deeper into crisis." Amelia said nothing. Outside the glass walls, Ethan stood by the car as always, silent, waiting. In her mind, his words from last night echoed, "I don't want to hurt you," and hers in return, "I need you here." If she denied it now, she'd be denying everything. But if she stayed silent, she'd be defying the very system she built. Her eyes closed briefly. The real storm was coming. And this time, only she could choose which path to take. That evening, Amelia asked Ethan to come up to her office after most of the staff had left. The city outside blazed with lights, but inside, it was just the two of them. Ethan stood near the door, keeping his distance, his face tense. "You wanted to see me?" Amelia stood by the window, arms folded. When she turned, her eyes no longer carried the cold detachment, but a mix of resolve and unease. "We need to talk, openly, honestly." Ethan gave a slight nod, waiting. "The rumors have gone too far," Amelia began. "The board wants me to deny everything, even fire you. If I sign that paper, this all ends. The company goes back to normal." Ethan drew in a deep breath, his voice rough. "Then do it. I'm just a driver. I'm not worth risking your entire career." Amelia stepped closer, her words sharp, cutting through the silence. "Do you really think I could erase everything? After what you've done? After you were the only one who told me I wouldn't break? Do you think I can reduce you to nothing more than a line on a contract?" Ethan stayed silent, but his eyes flickered. This wasn't the voice of a CEO giving orders. It was the voice of a woman battling her own heart. The room fell into stillness. Outside, the city roared. But in that moment, it was only the two of them, facing a truth neither could deny anymore. Just as the air between them grew unbearably tense, the door suddenly burst open. Amelia's assistant rushed in, clutching an iPad. "Ms. Carter, you need to see this. Right now." Amelia snatched the screen. A video was spreading online like wildfire. Footage of her and Ethan in the car, their eyes meeting in the rear-view mirror, captured clearly by a hidden camera from another vehicle. The headline blared across the top, an undeniable moment between the CEO and her chauffeur. The view count skyrocketed by the second, comments exploding. Some were supportive, calling it a beautiful romance that defied status, but most were brutal. She broke her own rule. If a CEO can't control her heart, how can she control a corporation? Ethan stepped back, his face paling. You see? This is why I need to stay away. They'll use everything to destroy you, Amelia. Amelia gripped the iPad tightly, her pulse pounding. She knew that from this moment, nothing was in her control anymore. This wasn't rumor. It was evidence in the eyes of the public. She lifted her head, her gaze blazing with both pain and resolve. No, Ethan, this isn't a reason for me to give up. It's the reason I have to fight. The next day, Carter Group descended into chaos. Reporters swarmed the headquarters. Shareholders called non-stop with demands. The board of directors immediately convened Amelia, insisting she deny everything and cut ties with Ethan. Inside the boardroom, all eyes fixed on her. The chairman slammed his hand on the table. Carter, that video is undeniable. You have two choices. Deny it and fire the driver immediately, or resign. The room went dead silent. Faces waited for her to bend, but Amelia calmly rose, her eyes blazing. You think the only thing holding this company together is numbers and cold rules, she declared firmly. But Carter Group was built on trust. Trust from our clients, our employees, and myself. I won't deny the truth just to save a few percentage points on the stock market. Murmurs rippled through the room. One director snapped, "You're destroying yourself!" Amelia gave a faint, defiant smile. "No, I'm choosing to be myself." When she walked out, reporters instantly swarmed her. She lifted her chin, looking straight into the cameras. "Yes, I created the no dating at work rule. But I am also human, and if you want the truth, then yes, I care about him." "That's the truth," the crowd erupted. In that moment, Amelia knew she had thrust herself into the fiercest battle of her life. But for the first time, she felt free. Overnight, Amelia's public declaration dominated every headline. TV anchors, social media, blogs. Everyone was talking. One wave of public opinion surged in support. Finally, a CEO brave enough to live with her heart. Love knows no status. I respect Carter more than ever. But the backlash hit just as hard. A CEO who breaks her own rules can't be trusted. If emotions drive decisions, this company is doomed. Carter Group's stock continued to sway, financial analysts warning of a looming trust crisis. The board nearly lost their minds, furious that Amelia had driven the company into what they called a dead end. Meanwhile, in Brooklyn, Ethan faced new pressure. A cluster of reporters gathered outside his apartment, pounding on the door, snapping photos of him and Liam. The boy clung to his father, tears streaking his face. "Dad, why are they taking pictures?" "I don't want to be on the news." Ethan wrapped Liam tightly in his arms, fury and helplessness flashing in his eyes. He could endure scrutiny, but seeing his son dragged into this storm crossed a line. Across the city, Amelia's phone buzzed with a message from Ethan. "We need to talk. Not about me, about Liam. I can't let my son grow up in this storm." Amelia read it, her hand trembling. She knew this would be the hardest conversation yet. That evening, Amelia drove to a small cafe in Brooklyn, the place Ethan had chosen. She brought no assistant, no security, just herself in a long coat. A stark contrast to her usual CEO image. Ethan was already there, seated in the corner. His eyes were tired, yet lit up when she walked in. A cup of coffee sat cold in front of him. "Thank you for coming," Ethan said quietly. Amelia sat down, meeting his gaze. "Ethan, I heard about the reporters at your place. How's Liam?" Ethan's eyes softened at the mention of his son. He's scared. He doesn't understand what's happening. Only that people are staring at him like he's some kind of spectacle. "I can't let my boy grow up under this kind of pressure." Amelia fell silent. In her career, she had battled the press, shareholders, even the fiercest competitors, but she had never considered what it meant for a child to bear the fallout. "So what are you saying?" she asked, her voice unsteady. Ethan held her gaze. "Maybe we should stop this. I know how much you've already risked, but if we go on, Liam will pay the highest price." Amelia's heart clenched. All the words she had prepared to defend their love stuck in her throat. She wanted to scream that she could protect both him and Liam, but looking into the eyes of a father terrified for his child, every argument felt hollow. a heavy silence lingered. Both knew the decision was no longer just about them. After the meeting at the cafe, Amelia returned to her high-rise apartment. The city below glowed brilliantly, but inside, the room was dark, lit only by the dim glow of her desk lamp. She sat before the mirror, removing her sparkling earrings, slipping off the expensive coat. What stared back at her was no longer CEO Carter, the iron-willed executive, but a woman with tear-brimmed eyes. Ethan's words echoed in her mind. If we keep going, Liam will pay the price. Amelia pressed a hand to her forehead, her heart aching. For years, she had sacrificed herself to build the Carter empire. And now, when her heart finally wanted to live honestly, the cost wasn't hers alone. It was an innocent child's. She thought of Liam, his frightened, innocent eyes clinging to his father. The image suffocated her. Logic screamed, end it. Save the company. Save the boy. But her heart cried, don't abandon him. Don't abandon this love. In the stillness of the night, Amelia broke down in tears, not because of failure in the boardroom, but because for the first time in her life, she truly didn't know which choice to make. A week later, the storm hadn't calmed. The press, social media, shareholders, it was chaos without end. But then, a new headline struck Amelia like a blow. Her phone buzzed non-stop with alerts. Boy at center of Carter Group's scandal, breaks down in tears. A video showed Liam being ambushed by reporters right outside his school. Voices shouted over each other. Is your dad dating Ms. Carter? Are you embarrassed your father's just a chauffeur? Liam clutched his backpack, eyes wide with fear, tears streaming as he tried to hide behind a classmate. The image of that terrified child shredded Amelia's heart. She shot up from her chair, fists tightening around her phone. In that instant, every hesitation vanished. This was no longer about romance or the company. It was about the safety and innocence of a child. She immediately called her assistant. Arrange a press conference tonight. I'll tell them everything. And this time, there will be no half measures. Across Brooklyn, Ethan rushed to the school, fury and helplessness burning in his eyes as he pulled Liam into his arms. His phone buzzed, a message from Amelia. I won't let them hurt your son again. Trust me. That night, the city seemed to hold its breath. All eyes turned to Carter Group, where Amelia was about to deliver the most important speech of her life. That night, Carter Group's grand hall overflowed with reporters, cameras flashing non-stop. Online, millions tuned in to watch live. Everyone waited to hear what Amelia Carter, the once untouchable stone-cold CEO, would say after Ethan's son had been dragged into the scandal. Amelia stepped up to the podium. She wore her signature black suit, her posture tall and commanding. But her eyes burned with something new. Not coldness, but conviction. Her voice rang clear across the room. For years, I lived by one rule: no dating at work. That rule protected this company, and it protected me. But today, I must admit a truth. People are not machines. I cannot deny my feelings, nor can I allow an innocent child to be harmed because adults insist on a perfect image. The room froze, every recorder and camera aimed at her. Yes, Amelia continued firmly, I care about Ethan Miller. He isn't a powerful executive. He isn't a wealthy investor. He is an ordinary man, a single father, and the one who reminded me that true leadership isn't about hiding your heart. It's about daring to live with it. Gasps and murmurs filled the hall. Some reporters nearly leapt from their chairs. The hashtag #Amelia rocketed to the top of global trends. Amelia lifted her chin, her closing words sharp as steel. Carter Group will endure, not by pretending, but by standing in truth. And this is my truth. Immediately after the speech, the media exploded. News channels replayed the clip on loop while social media filled with clashing voices. Carter is fearless. A CEO brave enough to admit true love. I respect her more than ever. Shameful. She broke her own rule. How can she still be trusted to lead a company? Carter Group's stock swung wildly. Some shareholders announced they were pulling out, while a new wave of younger investors voiced support. A company led by someone authentic will attract the next generation. In Brooklyn, Ethan switched on the TV. Liam sat beside him, eyes wide as Amelia's image filled the screen. Dad, she's protecting you. And me too, isn't she? The boy asked, voice trembling. Ethan swallowed hard, nodded, and pulled his son close. But then pounding knocks rattled the door. When he opened it, a pack of reporters stood waiting. "Mr. Miller, what do you think of CEO Carter admitting her feelings for you? Are you worried you'll drag Carter Group down with you? Do you plan to take advantage of this scandal to change your life?" Ethan clenched his fists, forcing his voice steady as he pulled Liam behind him. "No comment. This is my home, and you will not harass my son again." He slammed the door shut, but his heart remained heavy. After Amelia's public confession, he was no longer just a quiet, unknown chauffeur. He had become the center of a storm he never asked to fight. Late that night, after the reporters had dispersed, a sleek car pulled up outside Ethan's modest apartment. Amelia stepped out, alone. No assistance, no security. Ethan opened the door, startled. "Amelia, why are you here? It's still dangerous outside." She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes shifted inside, where Liam sat on the couch, his eyes puffy from crying. Her heart tightened. "May I come in?" she asked softly, not as a CEO, but as a woman truly concerned. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. Amelia walked over to Liam, crouched down to meet his eyes. "Hi, Liam, I know today wasn't fair to you, but you need to remember something. No one has the right to make you feel small or ashamed because of your father. Your dad is a strong man, and I am proud to stand beside him." Liam's eyes welled up again, but then he smiled faintly. "I know. Dad always tells me not to be afraid, and now—" "You sound just like him!" Ethan stood frozen, his chest swelling with emotion. He had never seen Amelia so gentle. When Liam finally went to bed, the room fell quiet with only the two of them. Ethan's voice was low, strained. "You don't have to do this. You already have enough enemies out there." Amelia stepped closer, her gaze unwavering. "I'm not here for the company. I'm here for you. For Liam. This isn't just my fight anymore. It's ours." In that moment, the invisible wall between them crumbled. For the first time, they both realized neither of them had to face the storm alone. The next morning, New York's sky was clear and bright. News everywhere buzzed with Amelia's speech and her visit to Ethan and Liam. The media narrative had shifted. A love story that defies status. The powerful CEO and the single dad chauffeur. Amelia Carter, leading not only with her mind, but with her heart. Though criticism remained, a powerful wave of support grew. Images of Amelia kneeling to meet Liam's eyes, vowing to protect him, went viral as a symbol of courage and compassion. Inside Carter Group, the board of directors fumed, yet couldn't deny the truth. Amelia's credibility hadn't collapsed as expected. Instead, Carter Group was attracting a new wave of customers, people who valued authenticity over perfection. That evening, Amelia, Ethan, and Liam sat together on the small Brooklyn balcony. Liam laughed brightly, hugging them both. "I wish it could always be like this." Amelia turned to Ethan, her gaze soft, rare. "It won't be easy, but we'll face it together. No more hiding, no more running." Ethan clasped her hand, his voice low but steady. "We're a family, and nothing can change that." Outside, the city roared on, the battles of business and reputation never ceasing. But in that moment, they knew they had found something more precious than power or prestige. A love strong enough to withstand every barrier.